The answer is vigorous law enforcement.
That's the only answer.
That's the only answer.
How about justice? You hear a lot about justice with law enforcement.
Justice is merely incidental to law and order. Law and order is what covers the whole picture.
Mr. Hoover, may I just turn our thoughts for a moment over to another facet? A lot of people say today that communism in the United States is no longer a threat. Do you believe that communism is still a great danger to the United States?
I most certainly do, Senator. I think communism today is as great a menace, if not more so, than it ever has been. The tendency to try to judge the strength of the Communist Party by membership alone is fallacious and is not realistic. You have today in charge of the Communist Party of the USA a group of hard, fanatical members who are dedicated to the overthrow of our government by force and violence. And the Communist Party of the United States is a member of international criminal conspiracy headed up in Moscow by Nikita Khrushchev, who serves in a dual capacity, both as Secretary of the Russian Communist Party, which is the governing body of international communism, as well as head of the Soviet government.
By 1963, J. Edgar Hoover was becoming isolated and entrenched within the FBI he had created. Then, just after lunchtime on November 22nd, Hoover called his boss, Bobby Kennedy, to tell him that his brother, the president, had been shot in Dallas.
Got a call from Bobby saying that the president was dead, that he'd gotten a call from Hoover, and Bobby said, I think Hoover enjoyed telling me.
The next day, while most of the United States was reeling with the size of the tragedy, Hoover went to the races. And what work he did in terms of the FBI's follow-up on the assassination, he did on the telephone from his box at the races.
The Dallas police were still collecting evidence and had to be stopped. After Oswald's death, the FBI swiftly requisitioned all the physical evidence, much to the chagrin of Police Chief Jesse Curry.
I had a request, and I have it here, where Mr. Wade requested, said I request that you turn all of the evidence obtained in the investigation of Lee Oswald's assassination of the president over to the FBI for mailing to Washington. We're turning all of our physical evidence over to the FBI.
This was on the direct orders of the head of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover.
Here you have the greatest police agency in the world. They're supposed to keep the president alive. He's killed in broad daylight on the streets of a modern American city. How can Hoover possibly admit that he couldn't know about this and he couldn't prevent it? There was only one way, by having a nut who was all alone do it. There was nobody to squeal on. So, from the beginning, J. Edgar Hoover had an instant vision. Oswald was a lone nut assassin, and that's all that anybody ever considered, anybody in official position. You can say, let me try and understand what the government did, how it worked this way. And you can understand that maybe for a couple of days they didn't want the truth to come out because they didn't know what was going to happen. They didn't want to frighten people. They wanted to preserve domestic tranquility.
We do know that the FBI, as the official investigative body for the Warren Commission, apparently collected all the possible evidence it could find that indicated Lee Harvey Oswald did it and did it alone. Other evidence that pointed to perhaps other people or other locations for shooters was either ignored or deemed to be mistaken or misinterpreted.
Events are rather incredible. They are incredible. We got the message on Friday night, which was rather forthcoming from them, and then on Saturday we got the one on Turkey. Then this morning we got the one going back to their more reasonable position. So we're going to stay right on it and see if we can work up satisfactory verification procedures, but I just wanted to bring you up to date on it. We got a lot of problems still to go, but I think we've made some progress.
It represents what's found for you.
Well, I think we just have to, the rhythm of these things, we'll see what happens this week. But I just wanted you to know I'll keep in touch with you and keep you up to date. Thank you, Mr. President. Bye-bye.
Do you now think that Mr. Hoover is a dangerous person, or just nasty?
No, I think he's dangerous.
Did you ever have this feeling that he knew a very great deal about you, personally?
I suppose every month he'd send somebody around to give information on a member of my family or myself so that it would be clear that he was on top of all of these things and received all of this information. I really deferred to him. I made a real effort because I knew that he didn't like me. He is rather a psycho, and I used to keep his ego up. We used to arrange for him every 2 or 3 months, go over and have lunch alone with the president. I made a fuss over him.
When I say blackmail...
I remember one occasion he said that my brother and I had a group of girls on the 12th floor of the LaSalle Hotel, and that the president used to go over there once a week and have the place surrounded by Secret Service people and then go up and have assignations. And a lot of it was so far-fetched. I mean, it was ridiculous on the face of it.
Hoover's files may have helped him keep his job, but nothing could stop Bobby Kennedy's war on the mafia, and by now, even Hoover had been forced to do something about it.
The President would like to talk to Mr. J. Edgar Hoover. Thank you.
Hello, Edgar. I don't hear you well. What's the matter? You got this phone tapped?
Don't know. I'm wondering if our wires are tapped at all. Every time I say something in the State Department, I read about it. And it's getting me frightened to even talk, take a call.
Yes.
J. Edgar Hoover on 2192.
Are you familiar with this proposed group that they're trying to put together on this study of your report and other things? 2 from the House, 2 from the Senate, somebody in the court, a couple outsiders.
So I haven't heard of that. I've seen the reports on the Senate investigating committee that they've been talking about.
Yeah, well, we think if we don't have, I want to get by just with your filing your report.
I think it'd be very, very bad to have a rash of investigations.
Well, the only way we can stop them is probably to appoint a high-level one to evaluate your report.
Yeah.
And put somebody that's pretty good on it from that I can select out of the government and tell the House and Senate not to go ahead with the investigation.
Yes.
Because we get there and get a bunch of television going, and I thought it'd be bad.
It'd be a 3-ring circus.
Yeah. What do you think about Allen Dulles?
I think he would be a good man.
What do you think about John McCloy?
I'm not as enthusiastic about McCloy. I knew him back in the Patterson, when Patterson's down here, the secretary thing. He's a good man, but I'm not so certain as to the matter of the publicity that he might seek on it.
Illustrate.
You're more than the head of the Federal Bureau as far as I'm concerned. You're my brother and personal friend, and you have been for 25, 30 years. I got more confidence in your judgment than anybody in town. And
I certainly appreciate your confidence.
Well, thank you. We are especially fortunate to have Mr. Hoover's strong personal dedication to maintaining the high standards of protection for civil liberties of the individual under our system of law.
It was no surprise that President Johnson reappointed Hoover.
Lyndon Johnson and J. Edgar Hoover, over many years, had an unusually close personal and professional relationship. And it all had to do with Hoover's power and Johnson's power.